very happy to notice that this evening I am asked to speak about three abstract subjects: emotion, reasoning, intuition. Each of these subjects requires a separate lecture, but our brother has given us an opportunity to show how I fit in these three lectures in one. So it's a game, and I am asked to play the game. We have the popular notions about these three subjects. When someone is active in his own way, we say he is emotional. When someone is nearer to our own likes and dislikes, we say that he is reasonable. When someone demonstrates that he knows things which we cannot easily know, then we say that he has a good intuition. Conversely, when a person is a bit calm and tranquil, many of us remark that he is not emotional. He is not having the warmth required. His own young wife remarks that her husband is not emotional at all. When the other person is not to our likes and dislikes, when he cannot like what we like, then generally people say he is not reasonable. By the word reason, many of us mean that which is reasonable to our own intellect. Generally, what we find reasonable to ourselves, we call it reasonable. So, we suffer from individual reason and personal reason, and we find some oddities in the people around us. When the other person has not the oddities which we have, many times we understand that he is not reasonable. That means he is not according to my reason. Beyond this, we have to understand these things in an impersonal way. We should know that there is a reason beyond our reason. There is a reasonability which has nothing to do with the personalities. Though for some time we will fail to understand the reasonability of it, gradually we are forced to accept the reasonability of the impersonal reason. The most popular and most understood example of impersonal reasonability is what we call the law. When we go to the court of justice, when the notary is really reasonable and when he impersonally represents the law, every one of us is obliged to accept what he says. If it is made a law that we have to keep the traffic towards the right side, though it is a bit inconvenient to us, we have to accept that it is a law, because the motive behind that is convenience and security and safety. When we go to England or India, we have to accept that the traffic is to be kept left-handed. No one can argue that it is against the law. That indicates that there is an arrangement in England and India, and there is another type of arrangement in other countries for traffic. And the intention behind the two types of arrangement is the same. That is the convenience, safety and security. So, we have to accept, when we are in England, we have to accept the traffic law of England. And when we are in Swiss, we have to accept the traffic rules of Swiss. And it has nothing to do with our personal convenience or not. This is only a mundane example of a higher truth. Just as we have the traffic police, the notaries and the court of justice made by the human mind, we should understand that there is the law of nature framed by the intelligences perceiving in nature, and when they are understood by the human mind, and if the human being grasps something useful out of it, and if he is in a position to appreciate the order and the arrangement that is there in nature, then he can copy it, and he can call it the law copied from nature. Then only his law in the court of justice will be happy. Then it establishes order and peace. Similarly, if one can observe how the heart is functioning, how the blood is being circulated, and how the brain centers and the spinal centers are organized, how the various intelligences are arranged in the various parts of the brain, and how these intelligences are governing the parts of the body, how the administrative system in the constitution is being conducted with the heart as its center, and how the executive system is being conducted with the brain as its center, and how the two centers are interrelated, how the secretaries in the two centers are working for us, then we can just copy it and organize our own administrative center and executive center in the municipality and the corporation, and we can incorporate in our cities and the towns, when we can safely call it the law and order, by following which we will be happy, safe and secure. Those who understand and follow the law of nature have among them the brothers who have not understood the law of nature. They cannot explain to everyone how the heart and the brain functions. For that reason, all of us came to an understanding some thousands of years ago that those who have not yet understood are expected to obey and follow, and those who have understood also have to obey. Those who have not understood, they should obey out of ignorance, for the sake of the reasons of security, and those who know should obey, not only for the reasons of security, no, but also to honor the law. So those who are ignorant of the law are conditioned by the law. They have to show only obedience and no reverence or veneration. Gradually, as we begin to understand nature and its working, as we begin to study physiology and anatomy, and try to understand how the heart is functioning and how the brain centers are functioning, then we begin to honor the law. We not only obey, but we show our obedience along with our obeisance. That is, our emotion will be distilled into inspiration and devotion. So, we have to understand in terms of our constitution. We have to silently observe how nature is working in our constitution and around us, and we have to also observe how the man-made law differs from the law of nature. Gradually, we have to try to minimize the gap between the law of nature and the man-made law. Then we will be able to understand what the court of law is and what is the value and significance of obedience, what in its real sense reasonability is. Then we come to understand that we are not the standard of reasonability, and that what is reasonable to us may not be sometimes reasonable in its true sense, in which case we have to leave our concept of reasonability and develop the higher sense of reasoning out things. Then we can widen the window of our comprehension, and the scope of visibility will be wider and wider day by day. But why this difference occurs in us? Why the reasonability of one person differs from the reasonability of the other? Is it true that reasonability is purely personal, individual? Or is there any reasonability that is impersonal? Is there a reasonability which is applicable to all and which can be gradually understood by everyone in the same way? The answer is yes, there exists such a reasonability. In that case, why the reasonability of one person differs from the reasonability of the other? This question should be properly solved. It should be reasonably solved, scientifically also, because science in its true sense is impersonal reason. Individual reasoning is many times unscientific because it differs from person to person, and if the reasonability is really impersonal when it does not differ from person to person, when everyone can accept and properly demonstrate it, then it can be called scientific. What the CS call science is only that. For example, if we say 2 into 2 is 4, everyone has to accept such facts in nature going on, which we have to accept without any question, as long as we are just sane and not insane.
Aussi longtemps?
It is called impersonal reasoning. Pythagoras calls it divine reasoning. That's why he says arithmetic is divine reasoning, because everyone has to accept the values of arithmetical calculations. Now, let us just try to understand why the reasoning differs from person to person. Why the zero error exists in our instrument. How we have to make the instruments precise and make the zero error zero, and tune our instrument with another instrument which is really efficient. In the objective world, we have a peculiar phenomenon. That is what we say, our point of view. We accept that this is a bottle. What I see as a bottle is different from what you see as a bottle. Because from my childhood, I have my own impressions about a bottle.
Mes propres impressions de terre.
Suppose if you demonstrate a bottle like this in a hall of people, suppose there is a person who goes into vertigo and falls from his chair and goes unconscious. What does that mean?
Qu'est-ce que cela signifie?
That means he had a horrible incident with the agency of a bottle of the same shape. Suppose he had a very close friend who committed suicide by drinking something with a bottle which is of the exactly same size. And the sudden unexpected death of his friend by suicide caused a rude shock upon the emotions of the person. Then, whenever you show a bottle like this, he goes into vertigo and falls down and becomes unconscious. He also calls it a bottle. We also call it a bottle. To the eyes, the shape is the same. To the mind, the concept is the same. But this proves that there are two bottles there. One is the objective bottle that is there, and the other is the bottle to the observer. So there is a subtle mechanism which we have to understand. Here is something which is to be seen, which we have to see, and also an object which we want to see. Similarly, if there is sky, the buildings, the heaven, the earth, the fruits, the flowers, the gardens, we have two worlds around us. One is what we want to see, and the other is what we have to see. What we want to see is our own world and our own creation. What we have to see is the creation that exists there. That means there is a zero error in the instrument of observation. We should know the why and how of this zero error. Then only our reasonability will be one with the impersonal reasonability.
Personnel.
Now, let us take the example of a lamp used in olden days, some oil in it, a wick in it, and matchbox in the smoke. If we want light in the room in olden days, we should bring a wick, a mantle, a container, an oil, matchbox, and we have the result, the flame. So, the one is the container. Let us solve it to the oil, 3, the mantle, 4, the matchbox, 5, the match, and there is also the 6th action, and the 7th, the result. Understand the human constitution in these terms. You have the first item as your physical body. You have the second item as the force in you, the vital body. And you have the third item, which is the jet of consciousness produced around the spinal column. You have your own reservoir of impressions, vast impressions, which you can call your magic ball. You have your own magic stick, the individuality, and you have your own action, independence of action. Then the result is light. That light we call ion. With that light, you will see what is there in the room. That is your own life. And you will prevent yourself from stumbling over space. You will use the light of your existence. You will enlighten your career of life. Now, where is the source of zero error? Let us try to understand. When the wick is burned, there is fire. The flame is colored, it's not pure, because the oil is colored. If the oil were to be pure, the flame will be pure, and if the wick is not pure, there will be some sounds. Any impurity in the oil and impurity in the wick produces some strange phenomena in the flame. Even though the oil and the wick are pure, the smoke is inevitable. You see, as long as the combustion takes place, the smoke is there along with the flame, and as long as you use this mechanism, and as long as you want a light, you cannot avoid this smoke. So, as long as we want this constitution as a vehicle, as long as we want to live in this body, we have to understand the world in terms of the limitations of this constitution. And one of the limitations is what we call this smoke. We see the world through smoke, which we call our own point of view. It is inevitable. But you can minimize this smoke, almost avoid this smoke, if you just purify the wick every day once or twice. In the same way, if you keep yourself clean physically and mentally daily, if you take a hygienic bath and wash physically and mentally, physically with water and some cosmetics, and mentally with what we call meditation, a scientific way of meditating, then almost this smoke is absent. It's not totally absent, but it is almost absent. That means we understand others not as we want to understand, but as we are expected to understand. Then the gap between the two understandings becomes less and less. This is one way of understanding the mechanism. So we can call it the basic defect that exists in nature on the physical plane. The physical plane substances are governed by the law of physical matter, and we cannot deny the law. When I put my finger in flame, it burns. That does not mean that fire burns. Fire never burns anything. My defaultation with fire burns my finger. So it is our misbehavior or defaultation that causes injury to the finger, and not at all, it is not at all the property of fire to burn anything, because it cooks food also when properly used. It saves us from hunger and appetite. So if we take water with a tumbler, it saves us from thirst. If we take a leaf into the river or ocean, it drinks us. So it is not the property of water that kills us or that saves us, but it is our terms of behavior with water that kills us or saves us. Same thing with everything around us and everyone else. Our behavior with others, friends or enemies. Whereas there are neither enemies nor friends in others, and our understanding of others make them good or bad fellows. Whereas there are neither good fellows nor bad fellows, but there are only fellows like us. This is one point of view we have to understand. Now, the oiliness, if it is impure, then it produces a flame that is colored. Similarly, if we have a toxic impurity in the oil producing apparatus of our body, for example, the liver kidneys, bladder. Then there will be poisoning in our water content of the body. There will be more urea poisoning in the blood sometimes, and the result is we are toxic, and we have only toxic impressions about us. Then we understand that everyone is sleepy and drowsy. The fact is we are toxic. Similarly, when the liver produces its own secretion unnecessarily, we feel like not talking to anyone around us. We understand that everyone around us is irritable and erratic. Somehow everyone in the street is impatient and hazy and crazy. So we feel an aversion to speak to anyone around us. In the domestic circle, we find the wife irritable, the children mischievous, and the grandchildren ungentlemanly, and the servants misbehaving. So we feel like keeping alone, shut ourselves in our room, and keep calm, away from the misbehaving crowd. This is because we are like that. Our blood is conditioned by the poisoning of the bile ducts, and our eyes are colored or jaundiced, and we see everyone pictures. Yellow. We wonder why everyone is a bit yellowish. So this is one of the reasons. It is our duty to see that the oil is pure. So the one reason is if we keep our food and drink carefully pure, we find this misunderstanding minimized. We find that the personal reasoning is nearer and nearer the impersonal reason. Gradually we come to understand that everyone is reasonable in this world, more reasonable than we expected to be. This is one factor which we have to take into account. Another is the beak, that is the spinal column, which contains many mysteries and secrets, which contains many ashrams of groups of the Devakini. Until very recently, the medical science did not suspect that there are so many mysteries along the spinal column. Even today, there are many medicos who do not accept what they cannot see. Of course, that's no objection to our understanding the subtler truths of nature. If we cannot see mind, does that mean we have no mind? If we cannot see or show reasoning, does that mean we have no reasoning? We can see things when they are on the physical plane. See, things on the material, in the material world, can be seen through the senses. Values on the higher plane, the plane of forces, can only be felt, they cannot be seen by the senses. If it is warm or cold in the room, it may be our sense of touch that can understand it, or the thermometer that can give us an understanding. You cannot see the coolness or the heat of the room as you see the tumbler. So we cannot deny things that which are not seen through the senses. There are many secrets that exist along this spinal column. What we call the 6 chakras and the 7, they exist as the potentialities along the spinal column. They are not the physical localities.